What do you mean? There's no life on board? Raka's voice crackled through the comms, her tone sharp with disbelief. Exactly what I said, Zorak replied, his deep voice a low rumble. The faint hum of his ship's scanners buzzed in the background. No heat signatures. No biological traces. It's like the ship, he hesitated. Like the ship what? Raka prodded, her four-fingered hand gripping the edge of the control panel. Like it's been abandoned for centuries, but everything looks untouched. Zorak's tone carried a mix of fascination and unease. This doesn't add up. The hull is pristine, and it's orbiting in a star system no one's mapped before. It's as if it appeared out of nowhere. Raka exhaled sharply through her nostrils, her elongated features twisting in thought. Send me the coordinates. I'm coming. Within moments, her sleek, silver vessel altered its course. The gravitational pull of the nearby gas giant made her ship's instruments buzz with static. As the abandoned vessel came into view, her three hearts seemed to skip a beat. It was enormous, dwarfing her ship and even Zorak's, which was among the largest in their fleet. The ship's design was alien, and not in the familiar sense. Its smooth, reflective surface glinted like polished stone, and strange, angular markings ran along its hull, glowing faintly blue. Is that writing? Raka muttered, her wide, dark eyes narrowing as she examined the markings through her display. If it is, I've never seen anything like it, Zorak replied. And I've studied over 400 sentient species. What do we know about the vessel's origin? Raka asked, her claws tapping impatiently on the console. Not much, Zorak admitted. Scans show it's made of materials not native to this galaxy. The energy readings are faint, but consistent. It's still running on something. Raka leaned back in her chair, her antennae twitching as she thought. We need to board it. If this thing came from outside our galaxy, it could hold advanced tech. Or answers. You're assuming it's safe, Zorak countered. And you're assuming it's not, Raka shot back. I'll meet you at the airlock. The interior of the ship was eerily quiet. Their boots echoed against the polished floors, which gleamed as though freshly cleaned. The walls were seamless, the faint blue glow of the markings casting ghostly patterns across the corridors. No dust, Raka observed, running a clawed finger along the wall. Not even a speck. How does a ship stay this pristine for so long? Maybe it didn't, Zorak said cryptically. His keen eyes scanned the hallway ahead. What if time works differently here? Or, he trailed off, leaving the unsettling possibilities unspoken. Raka's comm beeped as her portable translator picked up faint traces of sound. She froze. Do you hear that? Zorak nodded, his hand instinctively reaching for his plasma blade. The sound was faint but unmistakable, a rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming on metal. It's coming from that direction, he whispered, pointing to a door at the end of the corridor. As they approached, the markings on the walls began to pulse, their blue light growing brighter with each step. The tapping grew louder, then stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was deafening. Raka's hand hovered over the control panel beside the door. Ready? She asked. Zorak nodded, his blade at the ready. Let's find out what's behind door number 1. The door hissed open, revealing a vast chamber filled with rows of cylindrical pods. Each one emitted a soft, white glow, their contents obscured by a thick, frosted layer. Raka stepped closer to one, wiping away the frost with her sleeve. Her heart skipped a beat. Inside the pod was a humanoid figure, its features disturbingly similar to their own species yet distinctly alien. Its eyes were closed, its skin pale and smooth. Strange symbols were etched into its skin, matching the markings on the walls. What is this? Zorak whispered, his usual stoicism faltering. Cryostasis, Raka said, her voice barely audible. But why are they here? And why aren't they awake? A sudden noise behind them made them spin around. The door had shut, and the blue markings on the walls began to change, shifting into new patterns. A low hum filled the air, and a voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the chamber. Intruders detected. State your purpose. Raka glanced at Zorak, her claws tightening on her weapon. We mean no harm. We're explorers, she said cautiously. Who are you? The voice paused, as if considering her question. We are the Guardians. This vessel holds the remnants of a lost civilization. You should not be here. A lost civilization? Zorak asked. From where? The voice ignored his question. Leave now, or face the consequences. Raka's mind raced. They couldn't leave, not without answers. She turned back to the pod, her eyes narrowing as she studied the symbols on the figure's skin. What happened to them? She demanded. Why are they in stasis? They are the last of their kind, the voice replied. Their world was consumed by war and greed. They sought refuge in the stars, but their journey ended here. Their story is a warning. Raka exchanged a glance with Zorak. A warning for who? The chamber grew darker, the blue light fading until only the glow of the pods remained. The voice spoke again, its tone ominous. For those who come after. For those who dare to repeat their mistakes. Raka's antennae twitched. We need more than warnings, she said, her voice steady despite the chill creeping through her veins. How do we ensure we don't repeat their fate? The answers lie within, the voice intoned. Suddenly, one of the pods at the far end of the room began to glow brighter. The frost melted away, revealing its occupant in vivid detail. It was not humanoid like the others. This figure was massive, with 6 limbs and crystalline skin that refracted the pod's light into a dazzling spectrum. Its eyes opened, glowing a deep amber, and its gaze seemed to pierce straight through them. Awakening initiated, the voice announced. You have triggered the Keeper. The Keeper? Zorak repeated, gripping his weapon tightly. What does that mean? The figure within the pod stirred, its movements deliberate and slow. As it stepped out of the pod, the room seemed to shift around it, the air growing heavier. The markings on the walls pulsed in time with the steady rhythm of its movements. The Keeper is the vessel's protector and historian, the voice explained. It holds the knowledge you seek, but only if you prove yourselves worthy. Raka stepped forward, her heart's pounding. We're ready, she said firmly. Tell us what we need to do. The Keeper's voice was deep and resonant, like the echo of 1,000 chimes. To learn the truth, you must face the echoes of their past. Enter the memory nexus and witness what led to their downfall. And if we fail? Zorak asked, his tone cautious. The Keeper's amber eyes glowed brighter. Then you will share their fate. The floor beneath them shifted, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. The air grew colder, and the hum of ancient machinery filled their ears. With a deep breath, Raka led the way, Zorak close behind. The path ahead was uncertain, but they both knew there was no turning back. The staircase spiraled endlessly downward, and with every step, the surroundings grew more surreal. Walls of shimmering energy replaced the smooth metallic surfaces. Raka glanced at Zorak, whose expression mirrored her apprehension. At the bottom of the staircase, they entered a cavernous chamber unlike anything they'd seen. Streams of light wove through the air, forming intricate patterns. In the center was a glowing sphere suspended above a pedestal. The Keeper appeared beside them, moving as though gliding on unseen currents. As the Keeper floated to the glowing sphere, its crystalline skin shimmered with an intensity that matched the sphere's light. Raka and Zorak exchanged a glance before stepping closer. The sphere pulsed rhythmically, casting spectral patterns across the chamber. This is the memory nexus, the Keeper intoned, its voice carrying the weight of eons. It contains the essence of their civilization, their triumphs, their failures, and their doom. To understand their fate, you must immerse yourselves in their memories. Raka hesitated, her antennae twitching with unease. What happens if we're not prepared for what we see? The Nexus will reveal only what you are ready to witness, the Keeper replied. But it will not spare you from the truth. Step forward and place your hands upon the sphere. Zorak grunted, his deep voice heavy with skepticism. I don't like this. We don't know what it'll do to us. Knowledge always comes at a price, the Keeper said, its gaze fixed on Raka. Do you wish to proceed? Raka inhaled deeply, her 3 hearts thudding in unison. We came this far for answers. We're not leaving empty-handed. She placed a clawed hand on the sphere, feeling a surge of energy ripple through her. Zorak sighed. muttering under his breath before following suit. The moment his hand touched the sphere, the chamber dissolved into a cascade of blinding light. They found themselves standing in a sprawling metropolis, its towers stretching into the skies. The air buzzed with the hum of advanced technology, and alien beings moved about, their forms varied but graceful. The architecture gleamed with the same faint blue glow they'd seen on the ship's hull. "It's so alive," Zorak murmured, his voice tinged with awe. This is how it began. The keeper's voice resonated around them, though its form was nowhere to be seen. A civilization at its peak, united by knowledge and innovation. But such unity breeds complacency. The scene shifted abruptly. The once thriving city was now shrouded in chaos. Fires raged in the streets, and the sky was darkened by clouds of smoke. The beings they'd seen earlier were now divided into factions, their faces twisted with fear and anger. Weapons of unimaginable power lit up the horizon. They turned their brilliance against each other, the keeper said solemnly. Ideological divides, resource conflicts, and unchecked ambition fueled their destruction. Raka watched in horror as the city crumbled. But why? How could they let it come to this? Arrogance, the keeper replied. They believed their advancements made them invincible. They ignored the warnings of those who foresaw the collapse. The vision shifted again, this time to a vast fleet of ships fleeing the dying world. The beings were haggard, their eyes haunted. Among them were the figures they'd seen in the pods, their bodies marked with glowing symbols. They sought to preserve what remained of their people, the keeper continued. This vessel was their ark, a sanctuary for their survivors and their knowledge. But even among the stars, they could not escape their past. The scene dissolved into darkness, replaced by the cold, gleaming interior of the ship. The pods appeared around them, their occupants still and silent. They chose stasis over extinction, hoping one day to awaken to a better future, the keeper said. But time wore on, and their numbers dwindled. The last of their kind now rest here, waiting for a purpose that may never come. Raka and Zorak gasped as the vision ended, their hands slipping from the sphere. They were back in the chamber, the keeper watching them silently. They're mistakes. They're the same mistakes we've seen in our own worlds, Zorak said, his voice heavy with realization. Raka nodded, her features grim. If we don't learn from this, we'll end up just like them. The keeper extended one of its crystalline limbs toward them. You now carry their story. Take this knowledge back to your people. Use it wisely, or risk following the same path. The glowing sphere began to shrink, condensing into a small, pulsating crystal. The keeper placed it in Raka's hand, its surface warm and alive with energy. This is their legacy, the keeper said, a fragment of their wisdom and their warning. Guard it well. Raka and Zorak bowed their heads in respect. We will, Raka promised. We won't let their sacrifice be in vain. The chamber began to dissolve, the glowing patterns fading into the walls. The keeper's voice echoed one last time. Remember, the greatest threat to any civilization lies within. Farewell, travelers. Raka and Zorak found themselves back in the corridor outside the pod chamber. The markings on the walls were dim, the tapping sound gone. They exchanged a glance, the weight of their experience settling over them. We need to return to the fleet, Raka said, clutching the crystal tightly. They need to hear this. Zorak nodded, his usual stoicism replaced by determination. And they need to understand what's at stake. As they made their way back to their ships, the abandoned vessel loomed behind them, silent and watchful. Its warnings had been delivered. The rest was up to them. For the first time in her life, Raka felt the crushing burden of history and the fragile hope of a better future.